Hi, this is Joe Speaks Truth. Just 3 years ago, New York City was placed under the harshest lockdowns out of the whole country. While things seem that they're going back to normal, I want to invite you all to listen to the untold stories of the many New Yorkers that had to survive lockdowns and vaccine mandates. Hello, everyone. This is Joe Speaks Truth, and today I have a very brave lady. Her name is Sophy Medina. She has been 4 years that she was in the Marines since the year 1998 through the year 2002, and she's an active firefighter since the year 2008. So today that will make a total of 15 years. She's also a mother and a wife. And I want to say thank you for your service and thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
So we are here because there's certain things that we need to discuss regarding what has happened for the past few years, especially in New York City, because we were hit the hardest with the lockdowns and then the vaccine mandates, which resulted in people being fired and being put on leave without pay. So, Sophie, I wanted to ask you, what was your life like before 2020?
Life was pretty good, I felt like I was just hitting a good stride within the fire department. They always say you start to learn the job at 10 years. And so at that time, I was a little past 10 years. I had a great relationship with the guys at work. My own relationship at home was going great. I had my 2 children. And so life was good. I felt like everything was great at that point.
Mm-hmm. I bet. I mean, I was also making plans and writing things down of the things that I wanted to achieve for the year 2020 and forward. But then everything happened, and so I had to do things differently. But I wanted to ask you, why did you decide to become a firefighter? What about that particular career fascinates you?
So I've always had jobs like that are non-traditional. Right after high school, I became a lifeguard. Then I joined the Marines. Then I did security for a while. So this was an easy next step for me. And I like to do things where I'm helping people. I don't like to sit behind a desk all day. And it was something that's physical. I've always been, into physical fitness and keeping my body moving. So that was just a really good step for me. And I had some friends that had taken the test, and they let me know about it. And so then I just started the process, and it was a good fit.
Mm-hmm. So in order to become a firefighter, I'm pretty sure they require a physical exam. Does it also require to get certain medical tests or any vaccinations or anything like that?
So from what I remember, when I took my physical test, you take the written test, then you start all the physical stuff, and they'll go through your medical records. So let's say you didn't have a way to prove that you had a childhood immunization. They check your titers. So they were able to see early on, and each year that I get my physical, they're able to see that I have titers for hepatitis, that I have titers for varicella, which I never got a shot for. I actually had chickenpox when I was younger. So things like that, 20 and 30 years later, they were able to see in my blood work where there was never a vaccine that I needed to take yearly. I declined the flu shot every year. So even though there are some medical prerequisites that you have to meet, there was never a forced injection that I ever had to take in order to start the job or to keep my job.
Interesting. So with that being said, now let's fast forward to the year 2020, and you're hearing that there's a pandemic, but that we need to shut down everything just for 2 weeks, and then we'll go back to normal. I mean, what were you thinking when they said that?
I honestly wasn't thinking much about it. I was just like, okay, yeah, we've heard this before. I've worked through Ebola. We've all were around for one of the bird flus scares. And I feel like every 4 years there's some new pandemic, right? So I felt like this was nothing different, and I didn't really worry about it. And then a lot of the parents in my school, one in particular, kept saying, oh, I hear this is going to be real bad, and everyone that you know is going to be affected by it. And I'm like, only if you let it. But, then they start talking about the shutdowns. They start issuing us some masks at work, and they're telling us, take certain precautions every time we get a run for something, which is an emergency call. They're telling us to wear our protective equipment. and things like that. So, there's a little bit of fear or like just of the unknown, but it was nothing that, we were really fearful of for ourselves at first. Maybe for our kids before we really knew what was what, but that didn't last. That definitely was like a 2 weeks to flatten our own fear of anything of the unknown.
As time went by and you noticed that the 2 weeks turned into a month, then 2 months, then 6 months, then the mask mandates, then I don't know, people were not being allowed to go to restaurants. They decided not to wear the mask. What were you thinking then?
It was crazy because I felt like I was living in a parallel world, because at work, we didn't follow any of that. At work, we did like to engage with the public. We would go out with our masks on to go to the supermarket and buy our meals. We would engage with the public wearing our masks, wearing our face shields. If we had an active COVID response, we would suit up and everything in the beginning. But in the firehouse, it was business as usual. There were maybe a handful of people that were a little bit more scared, or they had like older family that they had to go home to. So they would be a little bit more cautious. They were wiping everything down. So we did that. We were wiping things down at work a little bit more. We were wiping down the handles, everything. But aside from that, we were still eating dinner together. We were still hanging out at the firehouse. And one thing that the job changed was that we only worked with the same, in my firehouse would be like 12 to 14 people at a time. And so that was like our little bubble. But they still had their own family that they engaged with. So we kept seeing each other, and life was still like, I saw people's faces at work. It was normal at work as far as that went. It was only everywhere else that it just seemed so different. And then I also have family in Florida that it's like, whatever. What are y'all doing up there?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because when it comes to like any other, okay, so the firefighters are the only profession that I'm like, I used to pass by the firehouses. Actually went eventually to speak to a lot of the firefighters when we were recruiting people, and I noticed, I'm like, they're not even wearing masks. It seems like nothing is happening to them, but everybody else, we had to be stay home. Businesses and restaurants, you have to go put on a mask, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, how come the firefighters? I'm like, what do they know that we don't know? Because this doesn't make any sense. I mean, from the beginning, I never believed the story. I said it was BS from the beginning. But I was trying to tell people, like, are you guys not seeing that the firefighters are not wearing a mask? And talking about that, I think I'm going to go a little forward with this. I kind of noticed that you guys knew that the agenda was complete bullcrap, right? But it took you guys October 25th, 2021 to do like the biggest protest. We walked over the Brooklyn Bridge. May I ask, why did it take so long? Because everybody was trying to unite, like teachers, healthcare workers, sanitation, etc. Why did it take you guys so long? Because it seemed like out of everybody, you guys were the ones that said, you know what? Screw this, we're going to protest against this. The healthcare industry did not come out in the thousands of ways that you guys did. The DOE, which I was a part of, definitely didn't come out, barely came out. I mean, we did with Michael King and myself. I came out, before it was even anything established. But you guys had a huge, why do you think it took that long to like publicly come out?
That's a good question. I think a few of us were watching and seeing what was going on. And a few of us, myself included, we were showing up to some teachers' things that were going on. And but it wasn't, and I'm shocked that it didn't generate more of an interest early on, because there's so many firefighters who are married to teachers. All right. So I think that people I honestly think that guys at work just didn't think that it would actually come to us. And so I don't think there was much engagement at that point, because it's just until it affects you personally, meaning with us, it's like our pockets. Right. That's when people really don't care until, and we've seen this. We've seen this time and time again. If it doesn't affect you, and there's that whole thing, first they came for these people, then they came for these people, I didn't care.
Right, that's true. And then
they finally came for me, and there was no one there. So that's one of my fears, that there's a part of me that feels like it's a little too late. But I am a hopeful person, and I like to inspire confidence and hope. So I don't think it's ever too late. But there is a part of it that's like, man, if we would have done in October 25th, if we would have done that earlier on, maybe we could have stopped it sooner. But here we are.
Right.
I think that's part of it. Yeah. Until it affects people directly. And so that's when they were saying October 25th was the march. October 27th was one of our deadlines of when we had to receive a vaccination. So that march was actually organized in about 4 days via Telegram.
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
And it was just people speed typing, and after a Zoom meeting that we all had, and like, what are we going to do? All right, we're going to show up. We're going to show out. We just had the permits. We didn't know how we were going to speak. And I guess we were in touch with different people, probably from New York Freedom Rally. And we just got stuff together, and we didn't know that so many people were going to come out. And to see that sea of people come over the bridge, I don't know if you remember, I was on crutches, so I couldn't go over the bridge.
I
had
remember.
to wait on the other side, and I just saw this sea of people coming down. That was powerful, and I remember being so upset that I didn't see the one helicopter that was up in the sky was a cop helicopter. There wasn't one Channel 7, Channel 4.
Yes.
You know, it was so underreported. I saw a Channel 7 guy walking around, and I remember saying, when you report this, don't say that we're a bunch of anti-vaxxers. And of course, they didn't do that. They reported us as anti-vaxxers or whatever. It was annoying, but yeah. That would have been so much more powerful had the media covered it.
I know, but I think one of the reasons why the media obviously could not cover that, just like they were not covering the previous protests that we had. At the beginning, they barely touched on anything that we were doing. Then eventually, they used to crop me out of certain articles, and like they used to put white supremacists, anti-vaxxers. Yes, conspiracy theories. But the reason why, in my honest opinion, given that you guys were able to bring so much people together, and you're the co-founder of Bravest for Choice, which is the organization that the firefighters brought together to life in order to fight this off. The reason why is because, first of all, that was the largest protest ever. So if they show that on the news and people see that, people are going to stop and say, wait a minute, what's happening here? And that might open up the conversation, and people might start thinking, and then they might want to join.
Yeah.
Right. So they definitely could not allow us to influence other people, because otherwise, come on. The point was they want everyone to be fearful. They wanted everyone to believe like, okay, nobody's fighting this off. Everyone is going along with the agenda, which is completely bull crap, because there was you, there was me, and many other people, or whatever the case might be. But I think that day I was just so shocked myself. But I did promote it for you guys heavily. I was also in InfoWars, I think, days before, and they asked me, and I said, it's not my rally. I have nothing to do with this, but it's for the firefighters. And I'm like, I think people should go, because this could be big. But when I saw everyone there, honestly, I was just like, oh my God. Like, imagine if everybody would have came out in 2020, because I started protesting the lockdowns from the very beginning, because I knew automatically that it was going to continue to escalate. But granted, I don't blame people for thinking like, oh, nothing was going to happen or whatever the case might be, because initially it was just 2 weeks, and Dr. Fauci and these so-called experts kept giving people conflicting information in order to keep the masses confused and just stuck to the propaganda and to the programming. So I think that played a huge role. But I wanted to ask you, you're also, your husband is also a firefighter, right? And then you both have children. How was that for the both of you? Like, because I know people that have gotten divorced because one of them wanted to be vaccinated, the other one didn't. Or one of them was like, okay, I'll vaccinate my children, but the other one doesn't want their children to be vaccinated. So how were you guys able to like have that conversation and that, have that open communication to sit here and say, you know what, we both are going to do this and we're going to support each other? And then how did that help with your children?
It wasn't easy, but we were both on the same page. We didn't always think the same way of how to go about it. I was committed 100% to, I'm not going to do it. You can't make me do it. Call it a tantrum or whatever, but I'm not going to do it. I'm an American. I was born here for a reason. My parents came here to this country, to have a better life. And that's on one. Number two, If God gives us free will, how is somebody going to tell me what to do with my body? Another thing was that we were both on the same page from years before, because we had a home birth with both of our children. And so I feel like that was the beginning of our real awakening to the way things work in this world when it comes to your children, your energy, spirituality, and the medical industry.
Right.
And much credit to most people in Hollywood are terrible these days, but Ricky Lake has that documentary, The Business of Being Born, and I watched that when I was about 6 or 7 months pregnant. So we had a birth plan for a hospital, and I watched that documentary. We watched it together, and we just looked at each other after that and was like, we're not having this baby in a hospital. As a matter of fact, we're not doing any of this way. So I feel like that really set us up for this moment, because that totally shifted the way we saw the world. And then when we were successful in having a home birth, even with the naysayers, because, his family has a lot of medical background, and they were very fearful, and everything comes from a place of fear. But what if. So we put all that aside. We had faith in each other and what we were able to do. And that's how I feel like our awakening started. So we were kind of on the same page when this happened. And thank God, because I can't imagine being at odds with the world and then at odds with your partner at home. That would be terrible.
Yeah, wow. Well, that story is super interesting. And I think I saw that documentary myself. And it's funny that you mentioned that you give birth at home, because I always said, like, if I ever have kids, after everything that I have learned, there's just no way that I can deliver my child at a hospital. Now, I'm not saying that all medical professionals are terrible, but I just don't think it's the natural way to do it. And I think everything has become like a business, which I get it from like capitalism perspective. People have to survive. But I just think giving birth is like you said, it's very spiritual practice. And I just personally wouldn't feel comfortable giving birth at a hospital. And again, after everything that I know, that's just not going to happen.
Right.
So that's very interesting that you mentioned that. And the fact that you can mention it, like you wouldn't be able to imagine people having like a couple not being on the same page. But unfortunately, with everything that has happened, like there were sons and daughters that were not speaking to their parents or vice versa. And I know people that did end up finishing or ending, should I say, the relationship because of the whole thing of, I want to wear a mask, I don't want to wear a mask. I want to get vaccinated, I don't want to get vaccinated. And thinking like, oh, this person is crazy because you're not going along with what the government is saying. And so I think, honestly, it was the perfect divide and conquer strategy.
It's part of the plan.
Yes.
And it's part of the spiritual warfare. Like, how do you divide a nation? How do you divide anything? You break up the family. So it's just part of the plan. It's lockstep with the plan to end families, have children turn on their parents. Very 1984, very communist propaganda, where the child idolizes the state and disparages the parent and doesn't see the parent in that almost holy light, that like it should be yourself, your parents, God, right? Like not in that order, but that's the way most kids like grow up. They only know themselves, and then it's like their parents are everything, and then they are made aware of there's a higher being, right? But I feel like that's part of the plan, to just tear that up.
It is, absolutely. Like, especially nowadays, you can't deny that. Like, it's right in your face. It's either you have no spiritual discernment, or you know that is the truth. However, you're too scared to, like, speak outside of public opinion. But let me ask you, when you were given the ultimatum of you needed to get the vaccine or lose your job, like, how did that happen? And was your husband on board too, or did you guys have a little back and forth with that?
Yeah, there was definitely some back and forth. There was a lot of, I'm not losing my job because of this. And I said, well, I'm not giving up everything I believe in for a job. So, we had those talks, and I think it took him a little longer to get to that same steadfastness of his own like convictions of, you know what, F this. Like, they are really trying to bully me. They're really trying to, it's really emasculating when you think about it, right? When they're trying to tell you what you can do. It's dehumanizing. But for a man, men don't like to be told what to do, number one. And so then you have this whole group of mostly men being told what to do, and a lot of them just went along with it. Like, that's got to feel horrible. So I think that was probably, you'd have to ask him, but that's probably part of his own like growth with that and his own evolution of his thoughts. For me, it was just, well, you know what? As long as this body's able and the spirit's willing, I can wash dishes for the rest of my life and be a free person. We all had that example growing up. You're younger than me, but I know you know the story of Nelson Mandela. He was imprisoned for so many years, right? And all he kept saying is, I still have this, and they can never take this. And that's exactly how I felt. Like, you can take it all. You can take it all. And I'll be fine.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I recently made a video because I was called to do that. Basically, I told people, like, listen, I had money in my savings account. Every 2 weeks, I was getting paid a certain amount of money. I ended up moving back with my parents, right? And it has not been easy. You know, I had to find ways to make money. I don't have a set schedule. So my sleep pattern is all over the place because I'm lacking the structure that I used to have when I was working in the school system. But I told people that as weird as that might sound, my self-esteem is the highest now. I feel happy. I'm at peace. Why? Because I realized that I might like nice things, but my self-esteem doesn't come from money. Like, I'm still Joe Speaks Truth, whether I have $0 in my bank account or whether I have $10 billion in my bank account.
Yeah.
There's people that have it all and they're not satisfied or happy, because happiness is a state of mind. It's how you look at things from a different perspective. I'm proud of myself because, yeah, I lost everything that I had financially. I didn't lose my soul. I didn't lose my self-respect. I didn't lose my dignity. And that's something that a lot of people cannot say. Now, I'm not trying to be judgmental or shame other people, but it takes a lot of courage to say, you know what? Take it away. You can have it. And still walk down the street with my head up high, because a lot of us put so much value into our careers and a social class status and how much money I have in the bank and how many homes I owned. But at the end of the day, when it all said and done, we're going to depart this world, right? So in what way do I want to be remembered? When everything is all said and done, I want people to remember, like, I lost everything because I wanted to fight for freedom, not just for myself, but for my nieces. I have nephews, they're already adults or whatever, but nonetheless, I was fighting for someone else's children, and I was essentially fighting for my future children if I decide to have them. So to me, that's way more important than any amount of money. And I feel like I'm not for sale. There's no amount of money that you can give me in order to get me to get this vaccine.
Exactly.
Why? Because I just don't want to. That's it. I don't have to explain. I just don't want to.
Right.
That's it. It's a no, and it's a no. With that being said, I want to ask you, have your children said anything to you? About what you guys do? I mean, I've met her children, but yeah.
Yeah, they know what it's about, and I try not to sugarcoat. You know, I do things age appropriate, but they know what happened. They know why we weren't getting paid. They know why the frills in the house kind of ended for a while, and why we had so much free time. And I think they're appreciative of, they're both going to be little warriors in their own way. They understand that freedom isn't free, that in life, you know, you have to delay that gratification. They were actually we were listening to a kid's podcast about that, how they have to delay their gratification, because the things that are going to help you in the long run aren't always the things that are fun in the now. So like eating healthy foods. Of course you want to snack. Of course you want to lounge. But get up and do the work that's going to keep you alive and healthy later on. Read the book so that later on, when people are trying to tell you that the sky is not blue, you can say, no, I know that the sky is blue because I have my own discernment. I know how to read, you know, things like that. So my kids are very aware. I hope that this like continues to just mold them so that they can just have very good discernment and good judge of character, and you know, that they continue their own path, that they don't follow the way so many people are just blindly.
Yeah, we definitely need more of that, because children are the easiest target just because they're growing up.
Yeah.
Their mind is developing and they're very innocent. And so I think I say this, and I think other people have said it as well. If you want to gain control of a population, you have to get through the children. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because as adults, we kind of have our way of thinking is kind of molded already. Granted, some of us are more open-minded than other people, but it's kind of hard to get to an adult. It's possible, obviously, that's why we have cults and things like that. But the children are the easiest target. So we need parents, because now even in the school system, we see how a lot of the teachers and administrators are teaching children things that shouldn't be taught in schools. And, I feel like it's on purpose, because essentially the schools are being run by the government, and the government needs for the next generation to be easily brainwashed in order for them to do what they're planning on doing. And also I want to talk quickly about how were you guys able to manage financially? How was that?
It was hard. Thankfully, we are frugal. We always saved money. So we had that kind of to lean on. Tommy did a couple of odd jobs. He's very handy. I would babysit occasionally, and we would dip into savings a lot. Yeah, so that's really how we were able to come afloat.
Wow. I can relate, because I also had to just do things there and there. I think all of us, most of us at least, I think did. Because while some of us did save, eventually the savings is not going to last forever. Things happen. With that being said, I know for sure your answer to this is no. Do you have any regrets? Will you do it again?
No, I don't have any regrets for saying no to this. And I hate it when they say, oh, well, she didn't comply. I didn't do anything different from just being myself. So the way I see it is like the city didn't comply with their contract with their city workers, right? So I feel like, I would do it again. And, there are times when I feel like I should have left, but I'm happy that I didn't, because New York City would have been flattened without people like you, without people like me. And, the rest of us that have at least found our voices and have been loud about it. So no regrets.
I mean, honestly, had it not been because of people like us and everyone else, the agenda here would have been 10 times, not 10 times, 100 times worse.
It would have been really bad.
Because I feel like, I'm pretty sure they kind of knew there was going to be resistance, but I just don't think that they thought there was going to be people that, regardless of whatever they said, hey, took away our jobs, fine. Took away our abilities to go to restaurants, fine. And it's crazy to me, and I was discussing this with you. One of your colleagues mentioned this, that he was able to go to a burning building to rescue somebody, to really save lives, not the put on the mask and save lives kind of propaganda, but he was not allowed to go to a restaurant or the movie theater. Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. It's really crazy. And it wasn't until you're talking about Brendan Fogarty.
Yes.
And it was honestly when he put it like that with so much emotion, I think everybody collectively felt that same, what? We did that. We were here.
That happened in New York City.
Responding to emergencies during a pandemic, and we weren't allowed to eat with people. Yeah.
And then they removed the vaccine mandates, meaning we were able to go to restaurants, but we still were not able to work. So I can contribute to the economy, but I can have a job or have my job back. That makes sense. And now they removed the vaccine mandates, and now they said, oh yeah, you can apply for a job, but now you have to sign a waiver, start over again.
Yeah.
Like you're a rookie. And oh yeah, that's perfectly fine. That's normal. There's nothing for us to complain about, right, Sophie?
Yeah. And throughout all this, the subway was running the whole time where they weren't checking vaccines on the subway. So you can totally intermingle. As a matter of fact, the mayor loved to say that he would take the subway, but he wouldn't meet with us because we were unvaccinated. But he would just take the subway all willy-nilly amongst everybody else. He was able to meet with the rappers, with the migrants, which I have a bleeding heart for immigration issues. So my problem is never the person that seeks a better life. My problem is the issues that a lot of them are caused by our own government interference and other governments that make these people come here to seek a better life. And then they try to pit us against each other, because it's always from top down that they're trying to like divide and conquer us. So all that to say, the subways were all open. They weren't checking for vaccines, on the subway, in open air filth.
And I used to get on the subways. There was no 6 feet. Like at first, when they initiated the lockdowns, there was not a lot of people because people were scared.
Right.
But then eventually, like once like people were told to start opening up their offices and go back to work, people were wearing masks. I wasn't on the train, but it was packed. There was no 6 feet, none of that. Then we had riots, no 6 feet there. And then the mayor, first he did, so the mayor, I had an altercation with him, which I called him, not nice words, but I think he deserved it. I really true, he whatever. But he took me to his office at that time before he was putting his office as mayor. I was unvaccinated. The other people were unvaccinated. He was not even wearing a mask. But then when we were supposed to form a coalition to meet with him again, he sent me through text, this is the New York City mayor, Eric Adams, and said that he's not sharing a room with the unvaccinated. Ridiculous. But going back to you, Sophie, what is your message to the world regarding everything that's happened?
Just don't be scared. You can't operate from a place of fear. And this, I tell that to my kids. I tell it to anyone who will listen, because we're always scared, right? And you ever see like a cat? A cat's always walking around like cautious, but they still go and see what's what. And you see those videos of the cats, like if somebody messes with them, they're still fighting back. So it's just, don't operate from these places of fear, because our minds can't process things right when we're constantly afraid. And I honestly think that people are afraid because they don't have a relationship with God. Find your purpose. Find your purpose so that you don't fall for these fear tactics all the time. Just do the right thing. We're not perfect. We're not always going to do the right thing. Do the next thing when you mess up, and be powerful. And it doesn't matter if you're crying when you're speaking your truth. It doesn't matter. And not even speaking your truth, speaking the truth. There's one truth.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if your voice trembles. Just say the truth. Give people the grace that they need. But understand that no one's going to do it for us. Everybody's waiting for that hero, and you got to be your own hero, and you have to do what's right for you. And for me, I had to be able to look my kids in the face and tell them, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. And we can be proud about that, even if we're eating cheese sandwiches.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Sophie. And I like the fact that you said that you needed to be able to look at your children, because that's one of the most important things that I tell people. If you're not going to fight for anybody else, at least do it for your children, because I don't think children deserve to be enslaved. I don't think children deserve to live this way. And to live in fear, you're taking away the ability to think critically, because your brain gets hijacked and you either get stuck or you're either told to move in order to go save yourself, right? But living in constant fear is not normal, and you have to ask yourself and wonder, why is it that the mainstream media only sells you fear? There's barely any happy stories in the news. There's barely anything good that's happening in the world, but it's just fear, fear, fear. And somebody's definitely benefiting from this. And it's not us, the people, but it's those that are in charge, right? Because a fearful population won't have the ability or the will or the sound mind to fight, right? And fighting is not just a physical thing. Fighting is just simply standing firm in your boundaries and convention, because sometimes you don't have to physically fight. In fact, this war that's been launched on the people is more spiritual, mental, and psychological than it is anything else. So thank you so much, Sophie, and thank you for being brave. That's why you're bravest for choice.
Thanks,
so thank
Joe.
you.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
It's a beautiful day today for a march. We're all my freedom fighters. We got to keep coming out to this. We can't let people get comfortable with our termination, with people being allowed to go to concert venues, and we still can't work. It doesn't make any sense. It's all political science. It's all about control. And everybody has to wake up, and we have to be unafraid to speak out about this. even in mixed company. It doesn't matter because no one cares about our discomfort. About us not being able to pay our bills.
Adams, and all the mandates, Eric 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 Adams, and all the mandates.
My name is Sophy Medina. I'm a New York City firefighter. I'm a U.S. Marine veteran.
Yeah.
I'm a child
Thank you.
of New York City. I'm a child of immigrants. My mom is Dominican and my dad is Colombian. And I love this city. And I'm sorry if I get emotional today. Today there are city workers facing termination due to them not disclosing to the city if they've taken a shot that has been essentially deemed useless at this point. And even some studies show negatively efficacious. Still on the chopping block after today, there are more firefighters facing terminations if their appeals for their religious exemptions and medical exemptions are denied. Firefighters like my husband and I, who have worked since 2005 and 2008, we've responded to many hairy situations and never once let fear get in the way of doing our jobs.